Did that answer your question?
That was my question also.
Anybody have any other questions on this? If not, let's go to physical therapy.
Physical therapy, we budgeted $500 in overtime last year, $500 in overtime this year. We did go over on that overtime line to $720 this year, and that was because of an FMLA situation. We budgeted for salary the same, $91,230, $91,955. Then we moved down to education and conferences. We have $500 budgeted for last year and this year. Then we moved down to supplies. We budgeted $12,000 last year, $12,000 this year. Part B, I'm sorry, skill PT. We budgeted $60,000 last year because of what we saw this year. We upped that to $80,000. Physical therapy Part B, we budgeted $136,500 last year, $225,000 this year. Again, this is what we've been seeing in the needs of the residents. Uniform expenses $375 both last year and this year. Equipment expense $750 last year and this year. And new equipment, we put $1 in that line item.
Yes, Representative Babson.
Sandy, under salaries for the physical therapy, does that represent one or two people or 1.5 persons?
2.8.
2.8?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Under recreational therapy, we budgeted $2,000 on both last year and this year for overtime. Under bus driver, we budgeted $19,290 both last year and this year. Under salary for our recreation department, $257,375 last year, $258,005 for this year. We go down to education and conferences. We budgeted $3,000 last year. We're budgeting $2,000 this year. Postage, we budgeted $600 last year. We're increasing it to $750 this year. General operating supplies, at $2,250 last year, $2,400 this year. Uniform expenses, $1,125 last year, $1,125 this year. Activity services, same, $2,250 both last year and this year. Bus expense, $4,000 both last year and this year. Entertainment, $5,500 last year and this year. And $1 in the line item under new equipment.
Questions? Did you want to say something about the expenditures for both physical therapy and recreational showing up, or the correlation between those expenses and the revenue?
They do offset, and I think you can look at, if you look at that supplemental page, you know, I often say in my discussion, you know, it's offset by the revenue. Keeping in mind that it is a contracted service, we do have a number of therapists on board, 2 speech therapists, 2 physical therapists, 2 occupational therapists in aid. I mean, it's the area has grown, and we're providing more services to our residents.
Okay, thank you. We're ready to go to social services.
Social services. Salary, $101,160 last year, $102,405 this year. Then we go down to education and conferences, $500 last year, $500 this year. Down to other fees and services, it's a zeroed out line. Office supplies, $200 last year, $100 this year. Postage, $600 last year, $450 this year. Travel expense, $1,500 for both years, and $1 in the new equipment line.
Questions?
And then under Special services. Under criminal background checks, again, we're paying $25, I believe, each time we do a background check. And this is for all volunteers, all new volunteers, all new employees. We had budgeted $1,500 last year. We're increasing that to $1,850 this year. Speech therapy, $25,000 in both years. The speech therapy Part B, we budgeted $59,900 last year, $100,000 this year. Occupational therapy skilled, $64,000 last year, $67,000 this year. Occupational therapy Part B, $38,420 last year, $190,000 this year. Laboratory skilled, $10,000 last year, $15,000 this year. Radiology skilled, $7,000 last year, $5,000 this year. Ambulance skilled, we budgeted $2,000 each last year and this year. Respiratory therapy, $4,800 both last year and this year. And that is it.
Anybody have any questions on the nursing home budget? Yes, go ahead, Representative Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, you know, in relation to the totality of the budget as it progresses during the course of the year, because in 2010, the nursing home budget's expense versus revenues was coming in at basically a break-even or maybe a negative $100,000 for the first 3 quarters of the year. But then at the end of the year, the final result was a negative $960-some-odd-thousand deficit. And then once again this year, at the end of 3 quarters, we were down $80,000. But at the end of the year, once again, we resulted in a negative $50,000 deficit. And so my question is, are there some sort of cyclical expenses that are occurring, or is there some sort of accounting anomaly that's causing all of these expenses to be pushed into the final quarter? Because because from an accounting standpoint, it does seem to raise at least my eyebrows.
The nursing home does not post. We don't do any of the posting for our expenses, so I can't. I understand, and I know that what I see in December is not necessarily what I'll see in the end of January. I think for some services there is a lag time, whether it be our rehab company or what have you. I do believe there's a delay, but again, I don't have the information in real time. Paula can give me at any given time what we have for revenue because we do our posting here, but I don't post the expense, so I can't tell you. I will tell you that we're not running on the third or the last quarter and spending money. That is not happening. But the issue is that how it is posted, I can't speak to that.
Thank you. So I have a question for the commissioners. Wouldn't it be prudent for the nursing home to have a better idea operationally from on a month-to-month or at least quarter-to-quarter basis how they're doing during that course of that fiscal year?
That's correct, and the instructions have been given to our finance office to send over to the nursing home a monthly update as to where they stand in their budget.
Okay, and if I just wanted to ask one more question to the commissioners, and it refers to the heating issue, was just that in the commissioners, when you put together your budget, did you kind of think that, in that heating and the electrical budget estimates, did you say, well, we're going to need to buy pellets, so we kind of added a little extra money, or is that like your realistic idea of what you're going to be spending? I guess it's, is there a little extra in there just because we're going to have to buy pellets and we'll need them before we actually burn them?
I don't believe so. I think we looked at what we were going to save, and I believe the estimate was close to $67,000 if we were on pellets.
Okay.
Which saved that amount.
Okay, thank you very much.
Representative Schmidt.
Just a comment following up on Representative Aldrin's comment on the totality. We were looking at a budget in the current year that just came in of $962, almost $963,000. The projected deficit for 2012, however, is $1.853 million. We've almost doubled that in a year. And that's quite a rate of growth on that deficit. I really, not being an expert in the field, I don't even know how to comment on this, although it just seems like an unsustainable rate to me.
Would you repeat those figures again?
Well, I'm just going off the sheet here. If I'm looking at 2012, they're projecting, if I'm reading it correctly, a deficit of $1.853 million.
That's correct.
Am I
We're not-
misreading that?
No, we're not budgeting that loss. When we budget for our revenue and expense, we budgeted, and I don't have that figure what we budgeted last year, but it was 1.8 or 1.9 budgeted last year as well. I mean, and I'm trying to be conservative, but continue to grow in our projected revenue. But again, two things to keep in mind. One is that historically, Paula, please tell me if I'm wrong, the projected revenue and expense has usually been in the 1.8 million or more, or 2.2.
Yeah.
Okay. What we end up as a profit or a loss is $962,000 this year, but we're not growing it. The other thing is, if you look at, this is historic for the county. It's like virgin territory. This is a new building. We have never, I mean, last year, the year before, whatever, we were able to project because we knew that building. We knew all of the problems that we were able to, to think about. But, you've got to work the building. And in talking with all of the other homes that have had we're hoping that we're projecting conservatively with our needs. And then we'll be able to fine tune it as we go forward. But we don't have any history to base this budget on, except for a couple of months.
Your projection, though, last year was about the same as...
Our projection was 1.8, and we came under. Yeah.
Yes, Representative McCarthy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you tell me, I see what the dietary cost is, $1.5 million. How many meals do you feed a day and what the cost is per meal? Not counting the jail and all the rest of it. What's the average cost per meal and how many meals do you prepare a day?
I'm sorry, Rob has left to do other functions. I can get that information to you, but I don't want to misspeak.
$3.15 a meal. I don't know how many meals
I
a
don't
day.
know. I don't want to misspeak.
$3.15 a meal.
Pardon? $3.15. Well, that's what I want to try to figure out.
Representative Holden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To shed some light on Representative Schmidt's queries, last year's budgeted deficit was $2 million and change. This year's budgeted deficit is $1.8 million. But the actuals from the previous year was $962,000. So the budget actually has gone down about $200,000 as far as deficit from year to year, even though they're in new territory. But and does anyone else have a recollection? Rob told us he served, and I think I must have wrote down the wrong number, 217,000 meals per year?
231,635.
He did say 231, okay.
231,
so he may need to double check that number, because that's only 211 meals a day. When I did that computation out, 365, 3 meals a day. That number didn't seem to jive on my little hand calculator, which has made a mistake. I never do, but the calculator subsequently sometimes does make mistakes. So that number might need some adjustment. But I mean, they roughly spend 1.5 million. So we divide that number by the meals, and we'll know how much. But I came up with $6.77. But the number of 231,000 does seem to be in question, based on those numbers.
Representative Umberger.
Yeah. I certainly understand what Representative Smith and Representative Algren are talking about with the deficit and the reduction of deficit, but we make that money, that's taxed to us. And so, you know, as a budget deficit. So we're paying that money in, and then they make more than what's projected, you know, than what they have projected here. So because it's an enterprise fund, I'm not sure whether that under or over projection ever comes back to the other side of the ledger, which is the tax money. So as long as, you know, what we're putting in, if at the end of the year we get out the difference between what we put in and what they made, then I don't think it's a problem. But if that's how the system works, then that's okay. But if that's not how the system works, then we need to look at it.
Commissioner Swanson, would you like to address that, or could you address that?
Not really.
Or could Kathy
We'll look
address
at
that,
it.
perhaps?
I see what you're saying.
You know, I mean, it doesn't matter how much we put in, as long as we can get it back.
Yeah, but that should be answered before we get to the next phase of budget approval. So, when could you get that input for us?
As soon as we can talk with the financial officer and tie it in with the nursing home, because that's the enterprise budget.
Yes. So at the next meeting, you would have that for us?
Try to.
Okay, fine, thank you. Representative Algren.
Thank you. Well, the quick answer to what you're querying about is that the impact on the overall tax rate is less $200,000, because the budget went down $200,000. So that flows through eventually. That $200,000 impacts the tax rate. So this year's budget over last year's budget is going to have, it's saving $200,000 off of the tax rate. You know, plus or minus change, whatever, with our pocket.
Isn't it correct, you may not want to get into this, but doesn't it work somewhat like a school district budget? In other words, the carryover goes back as part of revenue for the next year, so it reduces what you need to tax?
No, it's an enterprise fund.
No.
It's an enterprise fund. So it operates outside the tax system. Okay, it doesn't operate within the tax system. It operates outside the tax system. And we, in fact, give to the enterprise fund some amount of money every year from the taxes. Okay, but it is totally separate. It's unlike a school district.
No, but in the sense that that's a carryover that reduces the requirement for funding the next budget?
It may or may not. That's why we have,
okay,
that's the
okay.
question
Go ahead.
I'm asking.
Harry?
Yeah, that's gonna be my comment, that $2 savings may not occur, because you don't know how much money you're taking out of the general fund to reduce your taxes. So you could very well end up with an increase or less, while in effect, you got less money. Every year we put money in from the general fund. And if you don't put as much in as you did last year, for example, you won't reduce the tax rate.
Yeah. Let them get that.
Okay, let's rehash that with input from Kathy or whoever may get that from. Good. Okay, what I'd like to do then, if we have no other questions, let's recess for about 10 minutes at the outside, and then we want to get back to the commissioner's statement, and we'll address that before we go on with the county attorneys. Thank you. He just passed out a statement to us. So that's what And before we take up the next item on the agenda, I just wanted to mention the tremendous work that has been done by the administrative staff in the nursing home. We've all seen that, not just in terms of cost reduction or cutting, but the amount of work that has gone into reorganization, the utilization of staff. Those are ongoing demands, they're ongoing decisions that have to be made, and in the back of their minds, and particularly Sandy, is how do you get to the end point? And that's what drives her decisions, and I want to commend her and all the people who have worked there, the other managers and the administrators, in arriving at a budget as we have it today. So thank you very much, Sandy, and to all your staff. And I just have to say that I think the word is out that I am a pushover. I know that we said we were going to suspend one of the next item on the agenda, but with a great deal of arm twisting, Representative Algren has convinced me that we should go on with the county attorney's budget. So that's what we're going to do. And then we'll take up the commissioner's item as soon as we finish.
Thank you.
But that's the last time I'm making a change.
Okay, thank you.
Attorney Dewhurst, we are ready for your presentation.
Point of order, are there any information on the attorney?
Other than this one handout here, we just had, for some reason, five copies didn't get printed.
If you'd like to stop in after the meeting, I'm happy to open that door.
I could have some more made up.
Let's see what we have here.
No, this is a separate sheet.
Yep. Oh, it is. Do I have that? Oh, here it is. I'm sorry.
I thought I gave you one.
Yeah, I did. Okay, you're ready.
Where would you like to start? At the beginning? Or?
Yeah, let's just go right there. Let's start at the beginning. And it's not that extensive a budget, so.
Okay. Most of the changes this year have been in the salary columns for the county attorney's office. This was based upon a study that we did collecting salaries around the state in jobs similarly situated. The rest of the budget, we either decreased, held the line, in rare exemption, added additional funds to the extradition at the end of the budget, as the funds were not sufficient to extradite individuals who have absconded from the state. And for example, last year, shortly after I took office, we had an extradition to Florida, which was about $1,672. And so that kind of taxed us right out for the rest of the year to bring anybody back. So we held the line most of the year, made some difficult decisions on which people we could extradite and not. And so we asked for an additional $500. That's one of the small increases that we have in the budget this year. And some, like I said, in some instances, if you follow the columns down, we actually went down. We trimmed as much as we could. And the real differences are in the salaries. I prepared a little chart just to let everyone know where we are. Currently, the 3 assistant county attorneys are, the entry level is $44,280. Middle level is $52,215, and the deputy county attorney is at $64,000. This year's increases, which are reflected as 180 or 180,472, I'm not sure how it comes out in the budget here, just bumps up this to a minimum level of $50,000. If some of you attended the delegation meetings previous to this, you would have heard that we were having trouble with, we actually lost one of the county attorneys who was very instrumental in helping us with a complex case, and she left to go to Merrimack County for a pay raise. So we bumped that up to $50,000, which is pretty much what we feel is bare minimum. $60,000 to our medium level, and $70,000 for the deputy county attorney. We provided the salary studies to the subcommittee. These are consistent with, and they're probably on the low end or the low, medium end of salaries for assistant county attorneys. Also, in the other, we have 2 administrative staff, paralegals on staff. One is an office administrator and one is a paralegal victim witness advocate who assists the director of the victim witness advocate program. Currently, salaries are $34,036. We also presented her half of the budget, which is split in the victim witness program, which we presented, I think, a week or 2 ago. We're asking for $36,036. The commissioners came in at $34,660. That was just the standard across the board, county 30-cent an hour raise, I think it was. This level here for this level of paralegal is really, really low. Wanda LeBlanc has been with us for a good number of years. She has a high level of skill and does you know, more than a legal secretary, which is how it comes out here on the budget. Our office administrator, Betsy Rand, she's also at the low end of the scale, county statewide. Currently, she's at $39,653. We're asking for $41,653. That's also at the very low end, below most of the other counties for the county attorney administrative assistant position.
Tom, before you turn that over?
Yep.
I can't see, what are, in the middle there, what are the numbers in the parentheses? 100 and 1,700 and, right?
17,000, no,
Right,
down
no,
there.
down there, what is that?
$17,018,
And
and then
Oh,
it says a
okay,
half.
That's because they show up on the budget, Dave, they show up on the budget as half positions, and the other half is in the victim witness
Oh,
program.
okay.
So I just broke it out so you could follow along, but this is the total, and people lose sight of it because it is bifurcated between the 2 budgets.
The other part of the eye test, what are those 2 numbers on the far right, that one and the one below it?
This one
No,
right here?
far right,
Here?
right there and the one above it.
I wrote in the hourly amounts of these, for example, just to show comparison.
I can see that, Tom, but what is the 42 or the 40, or whatever that is?
$40,277.
What is that?
That's the commissioner's recommended amount.
And
And
then
this
just
is-
above
this-
that, is that also the commissioner's
Yes,
recommendation?
at 34,660.
Thank you.
Yes, Representative
Yes,
McCarthy.
Attorney Dewhurst, you've got it down that what you're asking, and then you have what the commissioners are asking. And of course, the only authority we have is to approve a budget submitted to us by the commissioners. So, will the commissioners, if we approve that higher figure, will the commissioners go along with that?
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Just a point of order to Representative McCarthy is the commissioners present us a budget, but then we are at our own free will upon a vote to change any number that is selected by a vote of the delegation. So essentially what Attorney Dewhurst is attempting or asking us is that even though the commissioners have submitted a number, he is asking us to consider his number that we can vote on.
I realize that.
Okay.
I just don't want to be stepping on the commissioner's toes, we're usurping. May I also add that we have no authority to set pay rates for anybody in the county. That's the commissioners. The only authority we have is to approve the budget they submit to us for salaries. The only salaries we can set are elected officials. The commissioners set all the other salaries.
Your point is duly noted. That is correct.
Commissioner Sorensen.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate your comments, Representative McCarthy. Sorry. We approved that top section. We're losing good people as assistant attorneys. We support that, and you'll find that that's in our budget. The rest of it, we had put in at the going rate for the rest of the employees of 30 cents an hour. If you want to change that, that's up to you.
Thank you. Representative Umberger.
Yeah, I thought that when we approved, I guess that the only salary adjustment